Exactly what impact will British Columbia's reconciliation law, DRIPA, have on communities? And what, if anything, can communities do to stop it? I'm Drea Humphrey with Rebel News, bringing you a report after I traveled up to the small South Okanagan beachside community called Okanagan Falls. At least that's what it's called for now, because after voting to incorporate, residents have been blindsided to learn that neighboring First Nations now have legal influence over their community's use of Crown land and its name and identity. If you haven't already seen some of my reports over the last few years about the BC government's Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, known as DRIPA, and why it's problematic, we have a special website where you can learn more about it and also join others in fighting against it through our email campaign at stopundrip.com. But in short, to get you up to speed before these OK Falls interview you're about to see, you should know that in 2019, BC became the first of only a few jurisdictions in the entire world to take the aspirational framework of the UN's Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act and adopt it here as law, pledging to rewrite all provincial laws, legally binding us to the radical commitment to have all of our laws in British Columbia ensure and be rewritten to align with the UN's ideological vision for what's best for Indigenous rights, not all rights. The influence that First Nations now have over the decision making of citizens that they do not govern has been rearing its head here and there. But since Okanagan Falls is the first community in 15 years to decide to incorporate, their pending municipality is the perfect guinea pig for the province and the rest of us to see how hard and how fast this social political experiment that is DRIPA can be rolled out. During a recent public meeting for OK Falls residents put on by the Regional District of Okanagan's Similkameen Area D Director Matt Taylor, whom you'll hear from later on in this report, residents expressed frustrations to learn that the incorporation process they've been working towards for years comes with reconciliation measures they didn't vote on being woven into their letters patent, which is the legal document they need to be an official municipality. Those measures include a provincial requirement to have an advisory board on Indigenous matters to the mayor and council on the community's dime, and the prime concentration of First Nations near them that may have an interest. So, what does the Soyuz ban? What are they calling for under the banner of reconciliation? They want crown land from the community's boundaries to be removed. And they also want the community to have to notify the ban of any developments they wish to take on. One can reasonably assume so that the ban could use its DRIPA influence over those decisions. And they also want to change names of Okanagan Falls to their choice, leaving residents asking questions like this man did during the meeting.
Renaming of the municipality. We've also heard a rumor that from a government department that we would be renaming our streets. Okay, I know. All right. All right, bear with me. So,
Can you spell the name of the city they want to make it?
yep, yeah, I know. So, the province has asked First Nations what it wants. And this is what First Nations is replying with. Three things. And we haven't seen this in writing.
It's a fair question, considering Vancouver residents have been recently complaining about a new street change in their area that says whatever this says, or us renaming common spaces in BC, like the former Queen Elizabeth Plaza Theatre, which now says this.
The name that we chose in Hunt Communum is Lachen. Lachen.
The name that was chosen by the committee and our council is Ocean.
And of course, we can't forget how divisive the battle has been over the last few years in Powell River as residents continue to try and save its name against the Tla'amin Nation's demands to change it to the city. But perhaps most ironic is that Okanagan Falls is already an Indigenous name. Originally founded as Dogtown, it's been called Okanagan Falls, OK Falls, for years, since 1899 to be exact, and it was formally changed to Okanagan Falls 40 years ago. The name Okanagan comes from the Syilx language, which means place of water or people living where you can see the top. Nevertheless, the Osoyoos ban, Clarence Louis, defends the decision to change the name to CBC. He said it was a long overdue decision. And he argues that the mayor and council that the residents will soon be voting in shouldn't have a say because when it comes to reconciliation and land claims and Indigenous people having rights, those are not up for vote. Knowing full well that the Osoyoos ban already received a fully negotiated and complete settlement before for the portion of Okanagan Falls that is no longer their territory. I spoke with Matt Taylor and some OK Falls residents about the frustrations and whether or not they believe an upcoming meeting with BC's Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs, Christine Boyle, who, by the way, formerly served as the province's Minister of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation and also co-chaired Vancouver's UNDRIP task force, has agreed to set up with them, whether or not that will mean their community's voice will be heard just as much as Osoyoos nations. Take us back to just before the referendum. What was yours, the district's understanding of DRIPA, and how much it could impact a new municipality?
Well, this is the first incorporation since DRIPA, so we really weren't aware of the impacts of DRIPA. We were aware that it existed, but we were also told that, or we understood from the terms of reference for the study that we were doing, that consultation with First Nations was something that the province was completely looking after.
Tell us how you voted in the referendum and whether or not you think that would have changed based on these new DRIPA revelations.
Well, I was always opposed to incorporation because I felt that there were too many rural agricultural lands within the incorporation boundaries. And I believe that like urban bylaws, future urban bylaws that will be developed could hinder rural activities. But I was always for more autonomy for the town of OK Falls. And I believe incorporation could give them more autonomy being incorporated as opposed to just being another town within the regional district. However, after these revelations occurred, that sense of autonomy seems to have been completely eroded by the provincial government. I think that this definitely, there needs to be more transparency. There wasn't. And I think people are very disgusted by the provincial government at this point because there wasn't transparency through the entire progress.
Yes, I did vote, and I voted for incorporation. However, I feel like we weren't as informed as we could have been. And I'm not happy about the name change, even though we don't know what it's going to be yet or if it's going to happen. It's worrying. I mean, to me, there's always going to be a cost to it.
And the vote merely passed as it was. But here we are, and right now the Osoyoos ban is asking for four main things, it seems. That could be name changes to streets as well as Okanagan Falls, oversight or having to be notified about developments, removing Crown land from the footprint, and an advisory committee to the mayor and council. Which one of those stands out to you as perhaps the most concerning?
Well, I think both the boundary change it would definitely be concerning because, in fact, it is a boundary change if Crown lands are going to be removed from the jurisdiction because when we voted in the referendum, we voted on a specific boundary and it looks like that boundary may change.
The local businesses, everything's going to have to change, all the signage. And individually, it's going to affect every single resident is going to have to go in and have their driver's license updated. All your personal stuff, ID and everything will need to be updated. And I think that it really would have swayed the vote if we'd have known that ahead of time.
For the residents, it's probably the name change. We have a brand. The community is known around the province for a number of things: Great Beach, the Trestle Bridge, Tickleberry's ice cream, and we've come through a really significant depression in this community, and we lost our grocery store, we lost a number of businesses, and we're seeing the town start to get back on its feet. And we've also seen investment in the town. And for those that are investing in the town, it's not been easy. And to have another change dropped on them, the name change is seen as something, while it might not cost the province, it would have a significant financial cost and just logistical cost to residents and business operators. How much notice is required to develop a property, and what role a First Nations would play in that? That's something that's done now by other municipalities, but if something were stipulated in our letters patent that was quite excessive, that could have a significant damper on future development. As well, though, if certain Crown lands were removed from the footprint, that also, could potentially significantly impact us as well.
What is your understanding of what, say, if any, the residents do have if there is a potential name change coming?
Well, I think that's the issue, in that if it's done at this point in time through the letters patent process, then the residents would not have had a say in the name change. We actually have not been informed as to what the name would be. I have no idea what it is. All I know is that we've been told that, what do we think of seeing the community given a new name as recommended by a First Nations? And so exactly what that name would be, I don't know.
What are you hearing from the people, now that the incorporation is coming? Are people wanting to have a revote? Are they just wanting to hear more from the provincial government?
Well, I attended the town hall meeting, and there was a point during the meeting where a lot of people started chanting revote, revote, and I can sympathize with those people definitely, because again, we weren't given all of the information prior to the vote. So I can definitely see a lot of people wanting a different outcome. We were told at the meeting that incorporation will have to go through whatever that looks like, but obviously the timeline will be adjusted because the provincial government hasn't incorporated a town in close to 15 years. And in the era of DRIPA, I don't think they're even confident in what they're doing. I think that the cabinet ministers who are behind the DRIPA agenda really need to, if they believe so strongly in it, they need to push it in their own constituencies first. I have a feeling that Okanagan Falls is being used almost as a guinea pig, because this situation hasn't happened before, and so it's almost like testing the waters to see how this legislation will play out and how people will react to it. And so if they strongly agree with it, then they should be reaching out to their own constituents first.
Well, I did look at the map, and it looks to be a lot of the Crown land and a lot of it along the lake and that kind of stuff. So, I think those things have been settled a long time ago. They need to kind of stay settled. I don't know exactly what's going to happen if, will we still be allowed to use that land, or, will it be then cut off from us? That kind of stuff. So there's lots of questions that haven't been answered yet. And I personally think we need a revote.
We're fortunate the minister is getting involved. We have a meeting with the Honourable Christine Boyle later this week. There are asks, perspectives being brought forward by a First Nations group, by her staff, and from the Regional District Okanagan Similkameen, and also the people of Okanagan Falls. And the minister's involvement, engagement is probably very, very timely in deciding which way to go with that. And certainly we look forward to trying to work with her. I don't think, my hope would be that we can establish a process with the minister's involvement. And I think that's really what we are looking for, is what is the process.
Right. Now, there is a meeting lined up with the district and the minister. What do you hope to see come out of that?
Well, I hope to see that the minister actually listening to the concerns of OK Falls residents, whether that means, I know a lot of people are hoping to go ahead with the incorporation process on the original terms that we voted on. And I can see that as being one option. But I would also, there's another option of maybe taking a step back and listening to more concerns that residents have, especially the referendum vote, and how a lot of people believe that it was really unconstitutional because the provincial government wasn't transparent during the process.
Well, I would hope that if there's anything else that's coming up on the table here, that everything is put forth. If we've missed anything, if there's things that we need to know about, let us know ahead of time. I think it's almost a disrespect. We feel like we've been, the wool's been pulled over our eyes, if you will, and that it was slanted in an outcome to have us vote for incorporation. So I don't believe that it's a fair vote at this point. And I'd like to see it re-happen. I'd like to see another vote happen.
What would renaming Okanagan Falls mean for you and your family?
Well, my husband's family has been here for generations, since the early 1900s. And I think that especially the town of Okanagan Falls, even though there's not actually waterfalls here anymore, but I think that with it comes an identity. Whether that's we're trying to grow our tourism industry. But I mean, Okanagan itself is an Indigenous term from the Okanagan Nation Alliance. If we were to rename it, and I don't even know if the issue of renaming it would be a major concern, as long as the people here had a say. If it's a group that is not present in Okanagan Falls that is dictating the new name, I think a lot of people are not going to be supportive of that.
As we see the Supreme Court rule that private land enrichment should now be under the title of First Nations on Vancouver Island, we can see that something is afoot here. If you agree with that statement, please go to our special website called stopundrip.com, sign and share our email campaign demanding that the BC government repeal DRIPA today.